Hey everyone, welcome back. This is part two of my Trusting the Process painting. This is my abstract expressionism painting called Outgrowing Your Bedroom. It's the final piece in my nostalgia series, and this bedroom represents my childhood bedroom, and I have nature kind of overtaking it. So the idea that we outgrow our bedroom, which is then overgrown because we are no longer there, as if nature is kind of taking it back to where it once was. So, in my last video, I was doing my sketch and the first and second layer. This video is the complete final process, which is my favorite part of the painting. This is probably maybe 60% done. So right now I'm just kind of going over the clothes that are laying on the floor, and I'm doing a second or third layer to brighten up the colors. I'm using pretty bright primary colors, and I'm just mixing kind of whatever's on my palette. I'm definitely not the artist that pre-mixes all their paints and then has them in little tubs. I'm more so an intuitive artist where I'm just kind of making the paint colors as I go. And right now I am just painting the floor this mossy green color. Again, I just probably had it on my palette and I wanted to darken up the third of the painting. This painting probably took me a total of 6 hours to complete. I find when I'm doing more expressionism paintings, paintings from memory, when I'm actually doing sketches, they take a lot longer for me because I have to be more precise. Even though the objects are abstracted, I am still placing them in a way where I need to be attentive to not paint over them and to make sure that I'm doing layers on every single piece. When I'm doing just plain abstract, I find it takes me less time, and that's more so my wheelhouse because I've done abstract for a lot longer than expressionism. So I don't need to spend as much time to perfect my abstract pieces. But regardless, the hours that you spend on a painting does not change the value of it because you could be painting for 10 years and everything that you have learned over those 10 years is accounted for you painting a painting, say, in 3 hours. So right now is when I'm starting to get into the Neocolor crayons, which are my favorite crayons. And I use a blow dryer when I'm using them because it makes them more creamy and easier to spread. And now I'm just adding the lines on my bed cover and just doing the frame. And then I guess I've decided to paint the sheets like a lime green. And these are all, this is an accurate bedroom that I've had in terms of like the bed. I've had a striped blue bed cover and I've had green sheets before. This is my favorite part of the painting process because you start to see things come alive. It's when you're adding all these details when it starts to come into fruition your initial sketch. So I'm using a black wax pencil. And again, I'm using the blow dryer to create the outlines for all the pieces of clothing. So I have shirts in there, I have long sleeves, I have shorts, underwear, socks, and a few shoes. I do have this print available in my Etsy shop. I just loaded it up today, so definitely take a look. And I have other prints of my work. And I will be loading up my originals on there eventually. For now, I'm probably going to be selling my originals at outdoor art fairs, and I'll be selling prints online. But if you have any inkling of any originals that you like, just give me a DM. So I'm using like a peach colored Neocolor crayon to create this floor. I wanted it to be more like hardwood, but I ended up not liking it. So I do all this work to create this pattern, and it just looks like brick to me. And I thought it was too busy. So I end up just using like hot water and alcohol to remove the neo color because it's water soluble and not fixed yet. That's what I like about them. I have the option to kind of fix my mistakes. And when I do that, it leaves kind of cool specks of that crayon on the floor, kind of like it's been sitting there or it's dusty. So I end up leaving it. So I'm actually happy I did this process because I end up leaving a part of it anyways that I wouldn't have even done if I didn't start with this whole process. I do a lot of happy accidents in my art where I just test things out. And if I don't like it, I end up just trying to cover it or scrape it off. And it ends up leaving an even cooler mark. So if you're ever hesitant to try a different technique, I would just say go for it because even if you don't like it, there's still going to be some remnants of it when you paint over it or you scrape it off. There's going to be something that you learn from it. And then you can put that in your toolbox for other paintings in the future. I do that a lot with my abstract paintings. It's a lot of trial and error. And now, because I've done that so much, I have certain techniques I do, um, especially with layering, that gives me cool textures and shapes. So it looks like I'm still working on this floor, and I am adding now like a red trees into the painting, and this will be painted green. But I like painting red as a background and leaving kind of some specks of red showing because it just makes the trees pop. So I just added the red first layer onto the floor because I want the forest to kind of be taking over the bedroom. And then I start painting the trees their final color. And then I am just mixing up my sky color, which is just going to be a lighter version of whatever I have on the canvas now. And I'm just going over and around the mountains that I haven't painted yet. And I would say I have the painting cut up in thirds, but they're not even thirds. But I can see three instinct lines. So the first section I can see is the skyline with the mountains. And then the second is the greenery, so the grass with the trees. And then the third is the floor of the bedroom. And I like having these all different sizes because it creates interest in the painting. And I took the bedroom floor line higher than middle because if it was directly in the middle, it would look too even, if that makes sense. So now I'm taking like an off-white kind of gray. It is a gray. I just mixed up whatever was on my palette with white. And I got this nice gray color. So I'm using that as the base of my mountain. And I'm adding just the snow peaks on top of that. And I end up taking that black crayon and creating the outline of the mountains. I am now going over the trees with a dark green on the floor, and then I'm just adding the sun in the corner there, which I will paint like a darker kind of orange color later on. I take one of the darker green markers and I start making like lines that would represent grass. So I start adding that on, and without the dryer, they are not as noticeable. I end up going over them all with the same marker but with the blow dryer, and then you can definitely see the lines of the grass. And now I'm just going over, I like going over the edges sometimes with just like a black dry brush of paint. So I sometimes do all the edges in black just to kind of create a small, I guess, vignette. Is that the word? Um, Around the whole painting. And I just darkened up the sun. And this is where I thought I left it. So this is going to be a close up of how I left the painting. I had the sun, I added these little these kind of cartoony clouds, and I don't mind it like this actually. But you can see all the detail I left. You can see the marks on the floor I was talking about from leaving the Neocolor kind of hardwood marks. And then that's the message that I decided to put on the bottom, outgrowing your bedroom. There's some jeans and a lot of striped shirts. I used to have a lot of striped t-shirts, but I will show you in a second where I actually left the painting. So this is the final painting. I added a little star beside outgrowing your bedroom because I saw a little extra space there. And then there's the darker green marks on the grass. And then I added kind of like rays around the sun just to add something different to it, which I really like. So I'm very happy with this painting, and subscribe.